What's up, YouTube? It's Joe Catchpolia sitting on the couch making some money investing in fractional real estate online, as usual. Today is Friday, so it's time for this week's installment of the 52-week challenge. This is where I share all of the fractional real estate that I bought this week and invite you to do the same either in the comments, in the Discord, or as seems to be the most popular choice, to just send me a DM. This is my attempt to create a virtual accountability group, so we're not just doing, analysis, getting stuck in analysis paralysis, not buying properties, but just looking at tons of platforms, tons of sites, tons of properties, and then never pulling the trigger. I've committed to buying at least one fraction of a property every single week. Most weeks that's not tough, and I'm buying multiples, although recently I think I've slowed down a little bit. Some of the platforms I'm just buying bigger chunks than I had been, and then some are just becoming less exciting for me, and so I'm spending less time. Anyway, so let's jump into it. What did I buy this week? First of all, I bought this property, the Austin S2 on ARK7. I did this around the dividend day, where within 3 days of the dividends, if you make a purchase of $800 or more, you get an $80 bonus. I've talked about this quite a bit, that I'm trying to take advantage of the bonuses to the extent possible on several of these platforms, and ARK7 provides quite a bit of them. They have, I think they have your first investment bonus if you use a referral link. And before I forget, please like and subscribe. In the description of this video, I have links to all the places where I'm currently investing in fractional real estate online. Please do your own due diligence on those platforms and on any of the properties that you see me talk about. Just because I invest on a certain platform or in some of these properties does not mean it's the right answer for you. I'm just trying to share my experience with them, the way I'm thinking about this stuff. But you definitely want to make sure that you're doing your own due diligence and not just trying to copy what I'm buying, because as I'll talk about a little bit later in this video, sometimes that's a huge mistake and you can lose money. So also in the description of this video, I have a link to the Discord that I've set up. We have, the last I checked, 268 members. These are people who are interested in fractional real estate, sharing the info and insight on several different platforms and properties. Most of you are lurkers, but there are plenty of people who are actually jumping in there, sharing info on, sharing due diligence or strategies, or just talking about properties and platforms, all that sort of thing. There is no cost or, to join. There's no sales funnel. I'm not DMing you to try to get you to buy anything. If you do get DMs from someone who looks like me, that is an imposter. If they're trying to sell you anything, it's happened a few times. Please report them to Discord. Okay, so back to this. I'm trying to take advantage of all the different ways that ARK7 will give you bonuses in all the platforms. But so they have, your initial investment, and then they do this if you buy a certain amount around the dividend dates. And then they also have different bonus when you hit like certain milestones of total cash invested and whatnot. And then also, referral bonuses as well. So trying to, take full advantage of that is, well, one, I think it's necessary to make these deals really make sense for me. But so what is this property? It's a single family home in Austin. Pretty high price point, right? Not a price point that you would typically expect for a rental. Austin's relatively close to my market, right? So it's some of the places where investors from Austin invest overlap with where we do. And I would, so I have a general sense of their market. I also have access to the MLS in this area. If I were normally going to go and buy rentals that I wanted to make good sense from a cash flow standpoint, I'd probably be buying properties, $300,000 max, maybe $350,000 in this market, because of where rental rates are. You just can't go much higher than that and get any kind of yield. And you can see this one has extremely low dividend yield. So why did I buy it, right? A couple of things. One, at the price that I bought it, it ended up being, it would be an implied value significantly below this 522. I think it was actually 450 or something like that. But in addition to that, in addition to it being a discount to that, I think this price is already potentially lower than the real world value. I also have better data here because it is part of the MLS that I have access to. So, I think getting that, getting the discount on the property, plus getting it to 10% in bonus shares, for a property in a market that I'm already, I really think long term Austin will continue to do well. I think it'll continue to grow. It has been, prices have been in decline there for a little while because they just shot up so quickly. But I think, I don't think that trend's going to continue. I expect over the long term it to be a market where you have strong rent growth and appreciation. And even if we don't, I think that this is a property that, I'll get a small yield on, and then sometime in the future when we sell it, get the benefit of that discount and the bonus shares, right? And so those two things combined, I think it could equal as much as a 25%, pop in my equity, which is a big amount. I want to see if there's something else I wanted to say about this. There's really not, other than, last time it was put up for rent, it rented in like 2 weeks, which is nice and quick. It shows there's a strong demand at this rental rate. And it was at a time last year where it is going to come up for rent again soon, or at least for renewal. I don't know if they actually said they're going to move out or not, but there's not much left on this lease, but knowing that there's good demand makes me feel pretty good about this. All right, so that's everything I bought on ARK7, and it's actually all of the properties that I've bought that were equity versus debt. On Groundfloor, I bought 2 LROs. This one is actually, I made an additional investment in this Philadelphia property. I had made a partial investment in it in the prior week, but didn't have any more cash in the account. But this week, I had a few more payoffs, so I topped this one up to 100 because I'm trying to put 100 in every single one of these that I buy, and then bought the only LRO that popped up this week. And so I'm sticking with my strategy of just getting the widest diversification possible, buying a little piece of every single LRO, unless there's some glaring reason, that I'm like, okay, there's no way I'm going to buy that. Because I'm using the auto investor, but I do go back and look once it puts the order in, because I get an email that says, your order's in. And so you have time to actually back it out if you do that. But sometimes I don't even notice. But for the most part, I'm just letting it ride with every single one. And I've talked quite a bit about this platform lately, where I had all these loans stuck that had been in the extended status and for a very long period of time. Most of these loans are from 2024, but I did have one pay off from that time period, so I thought that was good, because early on I was investing bigger chunks, and you can see it. So like this was a $190 payoff, so not one of the biggest ones from that time period, but a bigger one than a lot of my recent ones. I was really glad to see one of these really old extended ones get paid off, because I've talked about this a few times. I'm worried that some of these should really be classified as default, and I'm not expecting to get paid in full. But clearly that's not the case for all of these old ones, because this one did get paid in full. It extended. It was supposed to be 15 months originally, I believe, and it went. Can I click on? No, that's not where I see it. Where did I see this? Anyway, I believe it was supposed to be 15 months initially. Probably in the email. And it went to 18.7 months. So it went, more than 3.5 months longer than it should have. And most of these pay off early, right? And so for it to go full term plus several months, where you can see like a lot of these pay off in 1 month, 3 months, 5 months, 4 months, it is, it's pretty worrisome to have some that were so far out there. And I got paid the full amount, so that the extra time that it was out, I just got paid interest for those extra 3 months. So on that one loan, I made $31.15 over the holding period on a $190 investment. So I'm very happy with how that turned out. hopefully I'll see some more of those extended ones pay off. And I've mentioned this before. I've had quite a few extended loans pay off in the past, but this was just a clump of them that were very old. And so it started to make me worried. That's it as far as what I bought on Groundfloor for debt. Please feel free to share what you're buying. Any thoughts you have on the stuff that I did buy? I know, I think I mentioned this, but I know this is a very low yield. My yield is a little bit higher than this because I purchased it at a cheaper price. But, this is what I'm thinking of more as an equity play, more by buying it at a discount. And I also think that as rents continue to grow, which right now they're not growing because there was a ton of building, and you can see a whole bunch of articles about that, about how Austin rents were stagnant or declining. I believe that's primarily in their apartment market because they added tons and tons of apartment units. I would guess there's not a ton of competition. Like when I was looking at comps for for rentals for this, there's not tons of homes like this one, like there might be if you're buying like Ontario's that has the little cookie cutter Lennar properties, right? Like these ones, I think there are less investors buying homes like this to rent them out. Although you are starting to see some accidental landlords. Anyway, I just wanted to jump back and talk about that. But I also wanted to mention why I didn't buy anything on Lofty this week. And there's a couple of things that I haven't talked about in a while. Their average token price. I had been giving you an update on that pretty regularly, but I haven't done very many Lofty videos lately. So I haven't talked about it, but you can see the average token price is up to $34.45. If we look at, and I'm looking on Lofty Assist in there, this is the, it's in the property section under, I don't even remember what it's called. The state of Lofty Marketplace. So you just click on properties and then click on that. But so you can see this is average token price over time. It bottomed out in the $30 range, $30 and change, but it's been pretty steadily coming back up. That means there's not as many of the deep discounts as there used to be. And also, like if you look, there's none. We used to sometimes get ones under $10. There's nothing under $10 right now. A lot of these ones that are between 10 and 20, I'm just not very excited about. And I do think, I've talked about this a lot. Almost all of what I bought this week, 52-week challenge videos, a whole bunch of them have had me buying this property anytime it went under 18. Well, now it's at $13.89, and I'm still not buying it. The reason for that is, we did evict a tenant, and it turns out that this property, because it was neglected for so long, I'm definitely going to lose money on this deal. I think even at $13, I might end up losing. So I'm not buying anymore. If it gets down to $4 or $5, I might pick up a little bit more. But I think that, I did talk about this maybe last week, that my strategy on Lofty, I'm not just buying deals because they're very cheap. I want to also be concerned with, okay, it's very cheap relative to the real world value. And also I know the manager's doing a good job taking care of that asset. Because this one, if we had gotten the tenant out quickly, secured the property early, like a good manager would have 6 or 8 months ago, I don't think we'd have this problem that we're having today. But there's they mentioned there might be mold growing in there, that it's very damp, that and it's just all the signs that it's been, it had the heating and cooling hasn't been working, the electricity's not on. It's just been neglected for a very long period of time. Now, that's not the current manager's fault, S&P Property Management. They actually took it over from Walick, who is really the person or the company, Walick Property Management, but it's Alec. That's where that neglect really started, right? Like, yes, there was, he took it over. We had a tenant in place. Right away, that tenant stopped paying rent. Whose fault that was, I don't know, right? Like, was it the turnover that didn't go well? Was that a tenant that was always going to have a problem. Like, there's no clear way to know, but it took so long for something to happen with this property that tenant was able to just abuse the property. They left at some point in time. We just had no clarity. And so, I'm just, it basically is like all the things that can go wrong on Lofty did, where we just don't have the same, it's not like, okay, I wouldn't expect something like this to happen on ARK7, because the company ARK7 themselves have a vested interest in making sure that, they're on top of the property manager. And, where on Lofty, there's just sort of, it's, nobody owns enough of it to really matter. I think I'm at this point the largest owner in this property, and it's not a ton, it's not enough for me to spend a ton of time trying to figure out what's going on, trying to, get the manager to do whatever they're supposed to do. And obviously, yes, if you have a better manager, that, it's more certain, right? Like, so that's why a combination of getting a really good discount and a good manager is going to be important to me in the future. But like, even we got a note, an update from S&P that they're like, well, we're not even sure, we just were going to evict the tenant and get it sold. We're not even sure, if it doesn't happen by this certain point in time, we might just, leave, basically abandon it. That's not exactly the wording they use, but it's, if it's not going to get done, and I get it. They don't have the economic incentive to stay in this for the long term, figure out what to do, get it sold. They're like, hey, we got to either get this sold now or we might just move on. And I think that's the real problem that we just see on Lofty, right? Is there's just not, there's nobody that has like enough skin in the game on these properties. That's other than sometimes some of the investors, to really just be committed if something goes wrong. So it's easy for, a property to go downhill. Nobody really feels like managing it. None of us have a big enough stake in it for it to be worthwhile. And that's kind of my position on this one. When I was building up my stake in this, I thought maybe I would just try to buy it from the Dow. If things, that was one of my earlier thoughts on this one. But I think we just let it get too neglected, and I don't want to buy a flip at this point. But that was one of the potential exit strategies that I had thought of. At this point, I think I'm probably just going to be happy with us selling it, hopefully getting, something back per token and just moving on. I think there's some chance, because of the debt that we have, we owe money to the ULD, the Universal Lending Dow, and I think we owe some money to past managers. Although I think there's a good argument to be made that if we owe any money to Alec on this one, he's the one who's really put us in this position. I don't know. I think there's an argument to be made that if we're getting this hurt as a DAO, that we don't owe him what maybe he thinks we do. And I'm actually not sure. I'm not sure if he thinks we owe him money or not, or if he got paid out of the ULD funds at some point. I don't really know. I don't have a lot of clarity on which managers we are still believe they're owed money from us. I think it's potentially Evernest, although that was who we were supposed to pay off when we took the ULD loan. So anyway, it's just a really good illustration of how messy some of these can become and how easy it is for just sort of everybody to wash their hands of the problem and walk away. And that's something that I think, we don't see with ARK7. We don't see with Arrived or Mogul. Like all of those, the platform itself has a vested interest in the deals working. Now, whether or not they're capable of making it, doing the right things and getting them to work is another story. But it's one additional risk that we have on here that's really just made me even more hesitant than I was before to keep buying stuff. This is such a low price, but at this point, relative to what I've been buying it at, but at this point it is just, it's too speculative for me, right? Even if I thought, even though there's some chance we could still make money on it, there's also a decent chance that it will. Like I said, I mean, I think we could get zero at the end of the day. I'm not, I don't know that for sure, but the situation is significantly worse than what it looked like to me, even just a month or two ago, right? Like it was, and that's one of the problems where we just don't have any boots on the ground in some of these markets, really like looking at the properties on a regular basis. We really need to implement some sort of industry standard, something like a pros report. Like I don't know if anybody's familiar with those, but like our property manager here in town, twice a year, basically sends somebody out that will do, a full walkthrough of the property, take like probably 400 pictures, open every door and window and appliance and make sure everything's working and look for lease violations and all that sort of thing. I think, and it's not, we don't pay a ton for it. I think it's a couple $100 a few times a year. Something like that I think is probably necessary for us to understand the condition of a lot of our property. I mean, it's absurd how many times we've, had a new manager take over a property on Lofty, get access to the property, send somebody out there, whatever it is, send a contractor or a realtor, and have them be like, wow, this is so much worse than we expected, than what we thought. When you look at the listings, it still has just whatever the original listing pictures are. It's just really problematic, right? So anyway, this is a weird Lofty tangent, but, falling into my what I bought this week 52-week challenge video. But I thought it was noteworthy because I didn't buy very much, and almost every single week up until now I've been buying on Lofty. So I wanted to explain. I think there are a few properties on here that I am still interested in buying if the price goes down. But so like the average token price ticking up, I think it's a good sign for the platform overall. But I think partially it's because we are liquidating a lot of the trash properties, right? So it's not as if it's happening because a lot of properties are just performing better. And it'd be interesting to look at, actually, and to do some math on, and it's not something that I've done. But I'm curious how much the average token price moving up is coming from getting rid of the worst performers, and how much of it is actually token prices moving. And I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know if any of these things would be a good measure of that or not. I was wondering if the Lofty Market Index would be, but I really have no idea. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Until next time, I'm just going to keep making mistakes so that you don't have to.